The meeting will begin in 1 minute. The meeting will begin in 1 minute. Thank you.
I call this meeting to order and welcome to the September 19th 4 o'clock informational meeting. We have at least 3 items on the agenda this afternoon. First order of business is City Council open discussion. Do we have any items for open discussion? Okay, seeing none, then we're just going to move right on into our first presentation then. And that is the August monthly financial report by Tracy Turbach, our finance director. Welcome,
Good
Director.
afternoon, Council. Tracy Turbach with the Finance Office, here with my regular monthly update. Today we'll, as we always do, review some of the economic indicators that we track, touch briefly on the general fund revenues and expenses, provide an overview on that. And then I've also added a slide this month to explore a little bit more about what's going on around the state in terms of sales tax revenues and how we compare with some of the other communities and with the state as a whole. So with that, I'll get started. Unemployment continues to be very, very strong. The latest data that we have indicates 2.4% for July, and that's exactly where we were at the end of 2016, up slightly from a year ago. But you can see we continue to stay right in that 2 to 3% range of unemployment. Compared to the state is currently at 3%, and nationally the unemployment rate is at 4.6%. Construction continues to be very, very busy in terms of the permits being issued. This graphic represents the valuation assigned to building permits that have been issued for 15-16 and then year-to-date for 2017. So far this year, through August, we've issued a little over $494 million in construction permits, and that represents about 94% of where we were at this point last year. So again, last year was the high water mark, at least to that point. So we're running very, very strong in comparison to last year as well. Looking a couple slides now on sales tax revenues, our general sales tax revenues. This graphic shows the 12-month rolling growth rate. August ended at 1.2%. You can see for the last several months we've hovered just above that 1% growth rate over the last 12 months. Entertainment tax revenues have kind of been overall the last couple of years been following the same general trend, coming down off a very high rate of growth back in 2015, and we see that as of the end of August or through August, the last 12 months, 2.4% growth. So that's down from 4.7% growth a year ago, and we're growing at 3% last month. So you can see that the ups and downs in the entertainment tax are a little more volatile than our general sales tax. That really reflects the kind of the smaller pool of sales that are subject to that sales tax. So one or two large events in a particular month can actually move the needle on the entertainment tax, whereas that really doesn't happen with our general 1% sales tax, or entertainment tax rather. The general fund revenues and expenses, nothing really remarkable to report on here outside of the sluggish growth in sales tax revenues. Through August, we've collected $95.6 million in revenues. That's about 61% of budgeted revenues. And on the expenditure side, we've expended $93 million, 58% of our budget, which is exactly where we were last year at this time. 58% of the budget has been expended. Now looking around the state at some of the other communities and what their sales tax revenues are doing. This information is pulled off the State Department of Revenue website and some of the reports that they provide. You can see the gold line represents Sioux Falls, and over the last couple of years what the trend here has been. And you can see that, as I just mentioned, the growth rate here over the last 12 months is down around that 1%, just slightly above 1%. The red line just below Sioux Falls represents Rapid City, and you can see they were kind of bucking the trend for a while up until about a year ago when their sales tax revenues started to tail off and the growth rate started to shrink, and they actually got into negative territory earlier this year and are just about back to zero growth as of the end of the most recent month reported. Excuse me. The green line represents Aberdeen, and you can see their trend has been fairly similar to ours, although they did fall into negative growth territory late last summer, last fall, and have recovered somewhat to where they're up with a very, very modest growth rate over the last 12 months. Watertown has really had a tough time of it. They were in negative growth territory pretty much all of 2016. And they have come back a little bit and are right around that 0% growth now. And the heavy black line is the state taxes, and you can see that they have fallen into negative territory and remain there at this point, right around that 1 or 1.5%. So that kind of gives you a little bit about how we compare with some of the other communities. At 1.2% growth, we're doing better than most of the communities around the state, or many of them anyway, the larger communities. Brookings and Yankton are seeing positive growth as well. I didn't put them on the chart, but Brookings is actually at about 3.5%. That's maybe one of the benefits of having a university in your community. And Yankton is bucking the trend a little bit at 1.6% growth. So that's where the sales tax picture stands at this point. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you folks have today.
Questions for the director? Councillor Starr.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. One of the things that stood out to me, and as you know very well, that we're approving the budget this evening. Are we good with our projections into the future for 18 and our revenue number being still pretty solid, that you're comfortable where we should be at with this type of numbers in the history, that we're looking at what the state overall average is versus ours? Because I know, isn't zero growth what we used as our forecast for next year, for 18?
The 18 budget, as it's been proposed, is based on 0% for this year, for 2017, and 1% growth next year. So I'm as comfortable as probably as I'm going to be at this point in the process. Time will tell whether we end this year at 0 or maybe somewhere closer to where we are through the first 8 months of the year, which would turn out to be a little better than what our budget was based upon. And 1% next year, I don't, it would be a very unusual year for Sioux Falls to only grow at 1%. I mean, as you can see, historically, that's the growth rates have been much, much stronger than that, but I don't have a crystal ball to tell you exactly what's going to happen, and that's one of the reasons we maintain a good reserve in our general fund to make it easier for us to deal with those kinds of situations if they do arise, if we don't make our revenue projections. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Councillor Rolfe.
Director, I appreciate the new chart, the new one that compares the cities. That gives us a little idea of what's happening with the state and what's happening with around the rest of the state. So thank you very much for doing it. And I want to just say thank you for coming here. I know it's a pain in the rear end to be here every month and give us this when you send it out to us, but it's important that you're here and we get to ask questions like this, and if there are questions, and look at trends, et cetera. So thank you very much for coming.
Well, I'm very happy to answer any questions you have, whether it's when I come over here for monthly updates or by email or anytime, really. Feel free to fire away your questions at me. I'm happy to respond.
Are there any other? Councillor Erickson.
Thank you. I know as we've seen the growth be slower than anticipated. Your department has had to really manage the rest of the departments as far as what we can and can't do with what we're collecting. Obviously, we can't spend more than we bring in. So I'm curious if there's any other noteworthy projects that we're waiting a year, or we're going to wait and see if projections come in a little bit higher by end of year to make sure we can do those, or if there's any, like I said, any noteworthy projects that won't be able to be done because of that.
Well, we really haven't changed our forecast in the last few months at all from where we were earlier this summer. We've been kind of managing to that 0% growth this year. So nothing has really changed in that picture. We do continue to update departmental projections on a regular basis, so they know kind of where they need to come in at the end of the year. And as we approach the end of the year, some of the departments are having to make some decisions on, and it's nothing particularly noteworthy. It may be repairing some sidewalk somewhere, or taking on some sort of maintenance project that they aren't really certain whether or not they're going to have the funds, and they've got to decide, yeah, we're going to go forward with it and get it done before the end of the year, or we're going to have to wait till next year. And so those kinds of decisions are getting made really on almost a daily basis. Nothing particularly comes to mind in terms of anything noteworthy.
Right. Thank you.
It's just taking care of business.
And part of my point of saying that is that you're obviously going to reprioritize and making sure that those things that need to be done are going to be done, and that it's being reviewed, and those dollars are being spent in the maximum way possible. So I appreciate your department for doing that. And I know the challenge, as we see the decline, really, we were at that 7% just a couple years ago of growth, and now we're dipping so much lower, and that comes with different challenges and I'm sure somewhat of a different culture as well. So thanks for what you do with that, and your department for managing that and coming and reporting to us.
Well, it certainly is a very different environment when you consider, as you say, just 2 years ago we were growing sales tax at 7%. Our expenses, the effective inflation, whether it's cost of living increases, health insurance increases, all of those things continue to escalate for the city, just like they do for any other business. So that does put us in a little bit of a squeeze, and that's been a challenge for the 18 budget, not only managing through 2017, but budgeting for next year, and the degree of uncertainty, I guess, as to when things are going to turn around. Is it going to be 1% next year? Will it be -1? Will it be a +5? We just really don't know. We just got to be prepared for any eventual outcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Turback? Director, I would just echo what Councilor Rolfing stated. I do appreciate the additional graphic that illustrates the average statewide, as well as some of the other key cities throughout the state. However, even though we're actually doing better than some of our good neighbors around us, it still does not do anything to change our challenging environment in terms of reduced tax revenues. And I would also point out that we have stabilized at about 1.2% over the last 3 months here, but we've also increased our population over what it was last year by 5,000 individuals, which puts additional pressures this year. So we're really just barely maintaining. So I would say that we're probably flat in terms of our responsibilities, maybe even a little bit behind the 8 ball in that regard, but we'll see what the coming months bring us, and I do appreciate the preparedness on the part of the administration and the individual directors overseeing their department budgets as well. So thank you very much for the report. Appreciate you being here this afternoon.
Thank you, yeah, and I appreciate those comments. I know our departments have all done really a commendable job in managing their budgets and staying on top of their expenditures, and really doing so with the overall goal of not reducing services, not sacrificing the quality of services they're providing. But we've, quite frankly, have wrung about as much efficiency, I think, out of our departments as we can realistically expect, without eventually seeing some tangible signs of services not being maintained at the level we're accustomed to. That's just the reality of the environment that we're in today, and what looks like it will be in at least the near future. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Okay, that brings up our next item on the agenda, which is the 2017-2018 CVB bid budget. And Terry Schmidt, Executive Director of the Sioux Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau, along with, I would imagine, members of her staff, will be presenting this information to us this afternoon. So, Director Schmidt, welcome.
Good
and also
afternoon.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I believe you all received a packet that Denise handed out before the meeting began. Good. And then we have the summary bid budget up on the screen for you to see. Just want to begin by, I think this is something you all know, but just to be sure that the purpose of the CVB is well understood, that we are the organization that was formed back in the 70s between the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Sioux Falls to be the organization that markets and sells Sioux Falls to bring in visitors. At that time, the agreement was, hey, Chamber of Commerce, if you'll house the Convention and Visitors Bureau and have them under your umbrella, we, the city, will fund CVB to go out and bring visitors to Sioux Falls, and that has worked very, very well for many years until the bid was established. It continued to work well, but it just changed. We no longer get money from the general fund. As you know, we have the room tax and now the bid tax, which is what supports the Convention and Visitors Bureau for our budget. Both of those taxes are collected by the hotels in Sioux Falls and gone through the City of Sioux Falls, and then we are given a check that becomes our budget. So we are the ones that get to run around the country and more every day the world cheering about Sioux Falls and why conventions, meetings, and events, and tourism and leisure travelers, and every kind of visitor that there is, we want to come to Sioux Falls. We spend a lot of time focusing on who those people are, which markets do come to Sioux Falls, which ones are realistic for us to go after so that we're not just out there, you know, running free for all. We very much research and target what we are doing, where we are going, and why we believe those people will come to our community. Excuse me. For our bid and room tax budgets, they begin by we, the staff, putting them together. The bid budget is the one that we're before you today on, and the bid budget specifically, we put together, we take it to the bid board approves it. It then goes to the CVB Advisory Council Executive Committee. They review it for approval. It then goes to the Chamber of Commerce Budget and Finance Committee. They review it and approve it. And then it goes to the Executive Committee of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and then to the full Board of Directors, and now to you this afternoon, and then this evening, hopefully, for approval. So the budget is seen by many eyes, and it is pretty much reviewed at every level, which is good, and make sure that we are gaining all the input necessary and doing the best that we can do with those tax dollars. I think we'll just go ahead and jump right into a review of the actual expenditures in the budget. Again, you have before you the summary of those dollars. When we early in the process, we get a number from the city that is a suggested number that we prepare our budget accordingly. We did not use that number this year, nor did we use it last year, because we felt, based on the history and the actual collections that we were seeing, that it was too high. So again, this year, we were given the number $2,274,692 to use for this coming year's budget, the 17-18 budget. We, rather than using that $2 million figure, brought it down to $1,930,000, and that is the number that you see at the top where it says bid revenue for $1,993,000 at the very top. Moving on down to administration, as you already know, we split that between the room tax side and the bid side, and that comes in at $974,723, and that is total administrative for the budget. We then move into the program and services side of our budget, and we're going to begin by talking about the advertising portion, and with that portion, I'd like to have Krista Orsak, who is our Director of Marketing, come up and talk with you about that portion.
Good afternoon, Krista Orsak, Director of Marketing for the Sioux Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau. For under sales development advertising, digital strategy, we have proposed $439,000 or $439,442. This covers 5 primary areas and initiatives. It's for our agency, strategic planning, management, media optimization, and reporting. Paid media for leisure and group sales activities, content development for video and some new infographics, website optimization, dynamic content, user-generated content, and search engine optimization, email segmentation and automation, and social media efforts. For sports publications, we have proposed $25,300. This includes ad placements in 4 publications that reach sports event organizers and rights holders. The next line item is trade publications. That line item we propose is $121,440. This includes ad placements in 14 trade publications that reach religious, corporate, association, government, medical, and specialty vertical planner markets. That totals $586,182 for sales development advertising. Good.
Okay, then we'll move down to the section titled Sales Development Bidding. And bidding, as you know, is actually sales development, going out doing the sales, making the sales happen. The first line item there, you'll see bid meetings and leads. You know, that's simply when we're meeting with people, the cost of if we have to buy lunch or whatever that bid meeting takes to secure that lead. Pre-promotion requirements, $15,000. You know, we have to, we've learned that we have to work a lot harder than a lot of cities because we're smaller. One of the things that has worked well for us is to say to a planner, one of the things that we'll commit to you, should you choose Sioux Falls for your future convention, is that we will attend the convention the year before you're coming to Sioux Falls. We will be there with our exhibit, our booth, our promo materials, and our energy, and promote Sioux Falls, their attendance to come here, and why they should come here that following year. That has worked very well for us. It's a good investment, and it does help increase attendance. The next one is lead source lists. That's pretty obvious. We have to continue to look for names of associations and groups who we think would be interested in our community. Meeting planner incentive program. We talked about this at the bid board meeting this morning. Bottom line is that the competition is getting tougher. We are literally going to put together another incentive program that says, Councilman Kiley, if you bring your orange convertible convention to Sioux Falls and it does so many room nights and stays so many nights, we will incent you with a certain amount of money. It might be $250, it might be $1,000. Some communities are offering $25,000, $50,000. They're offering to pay all their expenses, et cetera, et cetera. So for us to come in at $250 to $1,000 really is quite minimal, but it is a step in the right direction. It's extending a hand and doing those things that we need to make sure that they realize we're serious, even though our budget is lower than our competitive cities. Planner, promotion, gift, and mailer. This is a $10,000 line item. This is follow-up. We sell, but amazingly, meeting planners receive leather coats. They receive trips to Hawaii. They receive trips to, I don't know, all over places, and all kinds of lavish gifts. We have never gotten into that before. Don't laugh, but we bought some really nice water bottles that we think are really nice. We did some cutting boards that are cut out with the city, the state, marked, and we have to do something to follow up to make some sort of a statement. It's not a trip to Hawaii. We're just not in that league. But it's what we can do, and it still makes a statement. Plus, with all of our energy and work, we're still able to get in the door and continue to get their attention to try to make that final sale. Planner, promo, gift, mailer, excuse me, that's the one I just went over. Sales gifts. This is more the small items, the ink pens, the chip clips, the things that we have to do in bulk when we're at a convention meeting or event bidding. Site visits and FAMs, very critical. This is what we want. We want people to come into Sioux Falls so we can get them on our turf, and we know that the people of Sioux Falls, the ambiance of Sioux Falls, the everything of Sioux Falls will sell that product, our product, to that meeting planner. So we do everything that we can to bring those people in. Under that, site visits and FAMs, you'll see Connect FAM. Connect is a very critical show that we have begun going to because we can specify markets and set up one-on-one appointments after doing research to let us know that these people will look at Sioux Falls. We go to that show, the sales team does those one-on-one appointments, they bring back the leads. Now we've gotten to the step where we can bring them in to familiarize them with Sioux Falls. So we're taking that to yet another level. We've made the connection, we've got the relationship, now we're going to bring them in. And that will take us around $20,000 to bring those planners into the community. Target market luncheons, we want to target a market, whether it's a group of educators in our community. We want to sit them down, tell them what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and say, what organizations do you belong to that we can go after? Bidding investments. Again, we need a bit of a fund to be able to go above and beyond that, that initial amount of money. If a new convention comes along and it's $10,000 that you got to put up front, and it's 3,000 room nights, we have to weigh whether or not we need to do that. Is it worth it? And then we have to be able to invest more of that money. Now, those all listed under it, ASA down through South Dakota Sculpture Trail, equal $53,700 that has already been committed by the previous bid board. So we will be paying that out as their events come up in 2017-18. So that totals a sales development bidding area of $173,700. Down under sales development travel, obviously we have to do some bid trips. We've got to go out and get in their face and sell. Sales blitzes, we want to hit Chicago, we want to hit Colorado Springs, Minneapolis, and DC. Takes money to do that. We've got to travel. We've got to get around in those cities, and then we've got that at $18,500. Trade and travel shows, that $104,050 is the equivalent of 14 shows that we have decided to focus on for the coming year. Most of our shows are no longer set up your booth and everybody walks by and takes your freebie and they don't care about you. Most of our shows are now one-on-one appointments. So that's called a reverse trade show. We much prefer that over just being kind of the free-for-all for everyone. Miscellaneous, $1,300 for miscellaneous expenses. So that totals total sales development at $893,764. Krista, if you'll hit tourism quickly, please.
Okay, quickly for travel publications under tourism promotion and advertising. With income at $4,000, we propose $61,513. And that includes strategic ad placements in 10 travel publications that reach domestic and international, leisure travelers, travel agents, group tour operators, and receptive operators.
Okay, so we are forecasting a break-even budget for next year at $1.9 million. I want to talk a little bit, if I could, very quickly. On the left side of your packet, you see this past year's annual report. The highlight of that is that we were able to count. And when I say we were able to count, these are ones that we could actually count, not the 2/3 of the rest that we can't count. We were able to count 1.5 million visitors in Sioux Falls that we know of in 2016. Economic impact based on our International Association's formulas came in at $490 million. I will tell you that the opportunity fund that this budget used to have, that the bid board decided to no longer have as an opportunity fund, since 2012, the opportunity fund gave to community organizations $945,888 total. That's a boatload of money. And I have a list of all the organizations. We tried the boards really tried to go by room nights, but sometimes that got kind of hard. It got kind of messy because there were feelings of need to support groups, and we never wanted to turn anybody away, and it just kind of got a little bit out of hand. So we've decided that, okay, it's great, $945,000 has been invested out. We've pulled that back now. We're going to be doing a strategic plan starting this winter. We're going to relook at things, see what the focus needs to be. Should we or shouldn't we be a pot of money here for the community to come to help fund their expenses? And that, we believe, will come out of that strategic plan. While I say that, I want to make it very clear that the CVB invests in all markets in the community already. Take a look at our visitor guide. Every market is in there. Take a look at everything that we do in our promotion, our sales materials, our display units, et cetera, et cetera. We cover everything from sports to the arts to the corporate community, et cetera, et cetera. We do the very best that we can to cover everybody without getting into just specifics and staying in one. I want to touch quickly too on, I think I'll pass this around. This is a brand new venue guide that we just came out with for Sioux Falls. Will you pass that quickly? Thank you. This is one of the pieces, of course, that we use to represent Sioux Falls out in the marketplace. We're getting ready in this next year to upgrade our meeting planners guide, the entire guide with all the forgive me, but all the guts of what meeting planners want. They don't want a lot of fluff. They want to know exactly what do you have, and is it right for me, and can we do business? I wanted to tell you too that Visitor Center at Falls Park is up year to date, 6,800 people. The top states visiting the Visitor Center: number 1, Minnesota; number 2, South Dakota; 3, North Dakota; Missouri; Illinois; Wisconsin; Florida; Virginia; Texas; Ohio. Foreign countries, number 1 continues to be Canada. Number 2, United Kingdom; 3, Italy; then England, Germany, Bangladesh, Denmark, Scotland, Sweden, and Australia. And these are only the ones who have actually signed in at the Visitor Center at Falls Park. It's kind of interesting to see who's coming to Sioux Falls. So, you know me, I could keep going for a long time, but I know it's time for me to wrap it up. In closing, we are seeing a decline in bid tax. It kind of reminds me of Tracy showing the sales tax. We knew this was probably coming. It was forecast in our industry. Excuse me. I can tell you that we've held our own pretty well until we hit July. And July, just numbers came in, and we are down $24,189 in bid tax, which equates to being down 12,000 room nights. I hate reporting that, but it's the truth, and it's the reality. And we, like I said, we knew it was going to be tough, and we knew that we were headed that way. Everything was forecast, but we still don't like it. While I say the bid tax was down, the room tax was up. Room tax was up $15,781. So, room rates, but fewer room nights sold. We don't fall far from other communities in the region. We get a report that's called the STAR Report, Pat, the STAR Report. And I can tell you that we are right in the mix with Milwaukee, St. Paul, Rochester, Overland Park, Kansas, and Des Moines. The one that rates higher for August is Rapid City, but their other months don't, they hit the summer months and then they go back down again. We are watching this very closely. I think that you already know that we have about a 3-month lag in receiving our room tax and bid tax. So today, I can't tell you where we're going to end by the end of September, which is the end of our fiscal year, since we are under the Chamber's umbrella. It will probably be December or January before we can tell you where we land in the budget. With that being said, we are watching very closely what we're spending. We're watching that income. We're talking to the hotels. What do you feel? What do you think's coming? What's it looking like? Knock on wood, this Garth Brooks thing is going to help elevate sales tax and bid tax. But we don't know that because we don't know how many people are actually staying overnight. So, we're watching very closely. I guarantee you we are continuing to fight for every piece of business possible. We do broad-based, ongoing public relations and sales and marketing efforts we will continue to represent Sioux Falls all over the map. We know how to work harder than anybody, and we'll do it. We've done it, and we will continue to do it in order to bring that business here and to make the best use of those tax dollars that we possibly can. So with that, I will quit because I'll get too excited and start wanting to tell you more and entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Director. Questions? Yes, Mr. Selden.
Thank you. Thank you both for the presentation. First, let me say I admire how you guys always do what you can with what you got and you excel against the competition. And I mean, your energy and enthusiasm always comes through in every event that I'm at or meetings, and it's appreciated, at least by me for sure. I think I asked a version of this question before. I mean, you get to some of these things where you're up against bigger cities and David versus Goliath, I would imagine, on a number of occasions, and they're handing out leather coats and trips to Hawaii and that. Do you hear back or do you see feedback from that actually works for these bigger cities, or do they see through some of that and work ethic and personality and that still wins out in the end? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
National softball tournaments are a perfect example of this. One city will fly in pounds and pounds and pounds of fresh shrimp and charter an airplane and bring in all their city council and everybody else, and they'll get up there and they'll introduce all of their city's leadership and they'll serve fresh shrimp and do all this, and they'll lose. The next time, when Sonny Bono was alive, he was right in front of me doing the bid. He was right before me, and they thought certain he was going to get up there and win because of who he was. He got up there and he lost to us, yay. But, those kinds of things work and they don't work. We go in longer. We go into that city longer and work harder. We run a little campaign. Rex knows this one. For the soccer tournament a few years ago, we went in early. We had hospitality room. We made toilet seat covers with soccer ball fabric. We put Burger King crowns on their toilet seats in their room with chocolates and said, "You're throwing away you in Sioux Falls." Now, that's hokey, I know, but hey, it worked. We go in and work harder and create the relationships, make sure they know that we're for real. We're not just going to come in, sell you a bill of goods, and be gone. We're here. We're going to commit to you that we're going to work from now until you pack your bags to leave. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it works. And sometimes we can't make sense of it.
Especially when you said you work with a lot of clients who want to cut through the fluff and
yes,
give us the facts, and so.
And that's more so today than 5 years ago. People don't. Corporate travel, for example, they come in, do their business, and leave. You might have seen in years past where they might have come in and made that corporate meeting be 2 or 3 days. That's not the case anymore. Or maybe they don't come at all, they just Skype it. So it's more, let's get down to the bones, you know, do you have the facilities? Do you have the transportation? Do you have the costs we're looking for? Do you have the see and do? Do you have the food? And most of all, do you have the community that will welcome us and stand behind us? And we can deliver on all of that.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Urquhart.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Schmidt. Just kind of want to follow that line of thought for just a minute, because the estimate, you said, you opened your presentation, the estimate was higher than what you ended up deciding you're going to spend. You talk about the thinking behind that, and I understand it's part of this philosophy that you have, but you talk about the thinking behind that, and why would we not maybe buy leather coats with that extra money? Talk about your philosophy of how we spend that money.
Well, are you saying, you know, we should have gone ahead maybe and gone with the 2?
Yeah, talk about why you didn't. What's the...
Well, because we don't believe we'll really get that much. We don't believe that we'll really generate that much.
Okay.
If we believed we would generate it, believe me, it would have been written in.
Okay.
But I'd rather come in based on history and the realities of what is being forecast in the industry for the coming year. Now, if we come in with more money than the $1.9 million, believe me, we'll have another budget ready to go, and we'll be before you for that approval to spend that money.
Right, and I remember you doing that in years past.
Yeah.
So then talk about the, you said you're starting strategic planning. What does that look like in your world? I know what it looks like in my world. I'm just kind of interested, what kind of strategic planning are you going to do?
Well, one of the facets that I want to work into that strategic planning is a market analysis of Sioux Falls. Let's step back and have somebody from the outside analyze exactly who will come to Sioux Falls. I mean, we're keeping lists of lost business and why. We know who we're going after, but let's get in there and really analyze deep as to the future of what kind of business Sioux Falls can generate. The strategic plan will also tell us where are we going in the future based on the community's input. Is there desire by the community for us to become more of a visitor destination, and what would that take in their eyes? And if in fact that is the desire, as an example, can we go there? Should we do that? What will it take? It will look at staffing, I'm sure. And are we staffed right? Do we have enough salespeople? The harder it gets, the more we need.
Right.
And the more competition that's out there and the more money they're all getting. In your packet, I put an article that I really hope you'll take a few minutes to look at. Omaha's first entertainment hub, the Capital District, is coming. They're kicking our rear ends. And with this, when this all gets done, it makes me shudder. We don't compete against Rapid City. Okay, now and then, and maybe for a leisure traveler, but we get them on the way or on the way back. We compete against these cities that I mentioned earlier, and Omaha is a big one. So are we, in the strategic plan, are we satisfied to be as we are now and just be? Or do we want to continue to compete for that piece of economic development that will help generate sales tax, that will help generate business for restaurants, hotels, retail, airlines, et cetera, create jobs?
Well, and I think it's important that you use the 2 words that you just used in terms of economic development, that, yeah, we're talking about travelers and we're talking about people that are coming in to visit us and spend a short time with us, but this really is about economic development.
Yeah.
You get to have the most fun of the economic development crew, but it's important for us to remember that part of your jobs as well. So I appreciate the report. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that people say about our side of the economic development puzzle is that we're all about food, folks, and fun, and we get them in here to visit, and then they go home.
Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, Terry, one of the things I was thinking of, the strategic planning was recommended as part of that
The mayor's task force, yes, correct.
so I congratulate you on going forward with
Yes.
that and having it done. One of the things that comes to mind is this, will this look at the comprehensive, maybe that's not the right word, but a plan, a facilities plan? In other words, is the convention center that we have right now large enough? Is it located where it should be located? Is it, should we be looking at something different along those lines so that we can compete? Because, yeah, we're the small fish in the big pond, so to speak, with Omaha, Minneapolis, Des Moines, Kansas City, Denver, those kind of things. And one of the ways that we can compete is with the great people we have here, the great restaurants, the great ambiance, if you will. But maybe we need to look at upgrading facilities if we're really going to compete with them.
I don't know that the first phase of the strategic plan will get into that, but I cautiously predict that it will drive us to do that in the next step.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, and, I, on the same page with you, my questions, I kind of smiled as you were talking, because that's the same line of questions I was going to ask. Is last week we approved a contract for CSL, who is an expert in reviewing building facilities for sports and leisure. And so we approved the contract. They're going to come in and look at the arena and the Orpheum and possibly the stadium, based on the desire of many that have talked to the finance department. And so my question to you would be is, what involvement, if any, have you had with that? Will you be involved and be able to provide feedback, or at least, I mean, I don't know how it will look, if they'll just come in and then provide a report and say, here's what you guys should do, or if they'll gauge you guys, the experts, in bringing these people to town of what you need is, yeah, we still need that floor space, but here's some options what you can do with the second level. Here's some options that you can do with the Orpheum that will help this be more marketable for your group. And so I'm curious if you've been involved in any conversations, or if you're interested in that, because that's a great opportunity for you guys to provide that feedback and expand that.
The first I heard of it was when I was watching your meeting on television last Tuesday night. So no, I did not know anything about it. Secondly, I would be very surprised if we weren't brought into it at some point, but I don't know. No one's asked us for any input or told us about the process.
Well, and it's literally just approved last week, and so I know they haven't come, they haven't been around yet, and
Right. They're a good company.
It's certainly an opportunity to gauge some feedback from what you see, just to have that dialogue. So I hope that you are at least communicated with when that takes place. So thank you for your time, and thanks for your presentation. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Director Schmidt? I have one. You'd mentioned that the industry had been predicting a downturn. How long ago?
Actually, we really got into it about a little over a year ago. We talked about it at the bid board meeting, and the hoteliers there were expressing what they were reading, and we were picking up on it as well. So, we were more conservative with our budget for this current year than too, and it has played out to be true. So it was a little over a year ago. And the predictions are pretty tight for this next year.
And also, can you tell me, how do you leverage the organizations that we do attract to the city this year in helping us attract other organizations in future years? Do you use individuals? What type of do you have some type of an evaluation that they complete after their stay that rates our services, provides us with a tool that we can use then to promote ourselves to other organizations?
We do a lot of follow-up with groups when they're done here. We also have a side of the CVB that is the service side, and that's where once we book a piece of business, we have a service manager who steps in and works with that group from that point on to make sure they have everything they need, And do they need our name badges? Do they need city tours? Do they want media coverage, et cetera, et cetera? So he spends a lot of time with those people, as does really the sales manager, making sure that they've got the facilities, et cetera, in place. So we get a lot of that during that process. How are they feeling about it during the actual event? And then typically we want to resell it. So we have to know and stay close to them about how to go. What do you need? What didn't we have? What didn't we do? What went well? And that then lays the groundwork for future resale. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does. And then also, can we leverage them in any way? Can we use them, in other words, with recommendations? For instance, Pheasant Fest that is coming. That's that is the largest to date.
Yes.
And that would demonstrate our ability to pull off that type of a convention to others that we might want to attract. And
we do leverage with those people. We get quotes from them. We get letters from them. If we're working on a certain piece of business or an ad campaign or something, and we want their input to help leverage us, we are very fortunate and do not have any problems getting it.
okay, great. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you all very much.
We'll see you this evening.
Yes, you will.
Last item on the agenda is building inspection and plans examiners. Let's get acquainted. And Gary Dean is going to present. It looks like there's a lot of you out there that we have to get acquainted with. So, Gary, welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Butch Warrington, Chief Building Services Official. Portion of their staff here today to inform you about what the building inspectors and plans examiners do each and every day. They oversee the protection of property and for the health, safety, and general welfare of the public in the built environment, and facilitate the adoption of the building codes that regulate the environment to ensure life safety. In simple terms, we enforce the code and issue building permits. We analyze the construction provided by the customer for code compliance, require the necessary corrections, answer their questions, and issue building permits for the work described. The analysis typically includes heights and areas of buildings, types of construction, structural design, egress, fire resistivity, fire protection, and accessibilities. The other thing that is important to note, that we educate our contractors and homeowners that we deal with on a daily basis. When is a permit required? In addition to the new homes and commercial buildings, a permit is required for almost every type of remodel or repair. For example, reshingling, residing, sheds, decks, window replacements, attics, build-outs, just about everything. The list is much shorter for what you don't need a permit for. Examples are sheds 200 square foot or less. However, a zoning permit's required then. Painting, papering, tiling, floor coverings, wall coverings, playground equipment, cabinets. However, we're going to get you for a permit if you have electrical or plumbing in those cabinets. Swimming pools less than 18 inches less or deep. Oops. The plans examiners, we got 3 of them here tonight. What we do is publish handbooks, pamphlets, forms to educate our customers about the requirements in the process. If you go down to the lobby, we have many handouts there available, and those are also all on our website also. In 2016, the plans examiners issued almost 1,300 permits for new construction. That's 233 commercial and 1,058 residential. That does not include the remodels and things like that. That's just new. Our plans examiners took in over 11,000 phone calls last year. So they're a busy group of people. The main job of a plans examiner is to review the plans, both residential and commercial. They check for code compliance for the building code and residential code, whichever one is applicable, accessibility, among many other things. Gary Dean, he's the chief building inspector, but he's also my chief plans examiner. He's the one I go to if I need questions answered. He's got 18 years of experience here. Carl Risty, he started out as a permit tech, and in January he moved into a role as a plans examiner. Beth Gunther, she's our newest hire. She was just hired here just a couple months ago, and she's been very valuable with her experience working for a general contractor and an architect before that. The inspectors. We got 5 inspectors. They all have their own little district that they go into, and they ensure code compliance. That's their basic job. And educate homeowners, contractors, because we like to see if they can make it done right once, not have to do it over again. Each inspector has a city vehicle and a tablet that they can obtain the permits on, and they can look at the plans for whatever there happens to be. Every day they face the homeowners face-to-face, contractors for non-compliance issues. Sometimes they're not the most welcome people, but they do a really good job. They did almost 18,000 inspections in the year 2016. So they're a busy group of guys. There again, Gary he's got 18 years of experience. He does go out on the job site once in a while. Don Friedman's not here tonight because he happens to be retiring here in October, and he's pretty much checked out already. Chet Bora is going to take Don's place. So we're going to lose 21 years of experience there, but we're going to fill him with a good person. Chet is currently a permit tech, and he went through the gravel, and he is really going to help us out. Brian Thill, he's got 27 years of experience. Tony Schmidt, 2 years. Neil King, 2 years. And Jim Welbig, 3 years. That being said, you notice how young a group we are? We've lost 137 years of experience in the last few years. With thousands of pages of adopted codes to enforce, we work as a team to accomplish our mission. Codes are revised and adopted in 3-year cycles, so we are continually re-educating ourselves about the new codes. In fact, I have the 2018 code in my office right now, so I will be back here in another year or so to get that adopted. In a nutshell, we educate the construction industry and general public about the code and the importance of life safety. With that, I'll take any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the group? Councilor Neitzer.
Do the inspectors have a copy of the code books in their vehicle, or is it all electronic on an iPad for reference?
They do have a hard copy in the office and in their code book, or in their truck. And that is something we're looking at doing the next go around, is not getting them hard copies, but getting them all on disc or electronically.
And then with the gigantic code book that you have to know, how often do they have to, I'm assuming there's some sort of recertification testing. What do you have to do to stay a building inspector, I guess?
In all reality, in the city of Sioux Falls, we don't have to do anything. It's if we choose to. You can become a certified building inspector, but there's no requirement by the city. If you go over to Minnesota, then you are required to do that. But there's no state or city requirements.
No continuing education, none of that?
We still go to the same classes all over, so we are continually educating all the time.
Okay, and then maybe finally, with thousands of inspections, can you adequately give it the inspection it deserves? I mean, like going back a couple of years, you remember the whole roof issue. There was some talk about, hey, the inspector drove up and they just kind of looked out of their truck and then drove off. And I don't know what you all have to look at to be able to say a roof is good, you know, or just as an example. So.
And for a roof, basically, it's to make sure we don't see everything. I'll tell you that. But we look for the flashing to make sure it's properly done and things like that on there. We have made some policy changes just recently where we no longer do same-day inspections. So if you want an inspection, you're going to call in the day prior. The next day, we're going to go out. And then the guys can make a nice little loop around their area. That way they can take more time to do the proper inspections.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for anybody? Well, I've mentioned this before, and I think it's worth mentioning it again. You perform a very important role within our community, and that is to ensure that we're protecting the life of our citizens through the different safety measures and the codes that you are enforcing. So that serves an extremely important role, and I can say that I have taken advantages of your services. I've presented my plans, and I have certainly gone through the education process because I found that if the best source was all of you out there in terms of how many outlets can I have on a wall, what's the distance between them, or the venting for my plumbing and so forth. And so I utilized that a great deal, probably to the point where you were glad to see me call for my final inspection and get rid of me. But it was huge because obviously I wanted to do things right and protect my family in the process. So all of you, lady and gentlemen, thank you very much for your services. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes. And it's nice to meet you all. Well, that is the last item on our agenda this afternoon, so this meeting is adjourned.